all that you need to know to catch the big ones. Then, Mr. Nick Rodeball from the Ohio Division of Wildlife. He is the electroshock fish expert. And then we're going to have Mr. John B. And he's over here with the camera. And John B. is my protege. He does an awesome online fishing show as well. He has been doing it for years. Student down at Hocking Tech, and knows a lot about fishing. Excellent upcoming fisherman. And then I will go up last, and I've got some video for you. I'm going to show you some big smallmouth, spotted bass, some big crappies.
I want to tell you where you might want to start fishing to get bit and to catch some fish when the ice goes out. Like you all know and stuff, I mean, the trick is you want to be when the ice first goes out, depending upon the type of lakes you are, the shallower lakes are going to be a better bet for you to start fishing at. Whether it be small ponds, shallow lakes, that's where you want to initially start concentrating at. For instance, if you were to go up to Hoover Reservoir or Allen Creek, your chances will be a lot less because these fish are still in winter patterns. They're still suspended out off the breaks, and a lot of times it's difficult to catch those fish. So what you really want to start doing is, when you first start out in the spring, is focus towards places where you're going to be more likely to get bit, and whether it be small ponds and whatnot. Now we got to decide what kind of baits we want to throw. Well, first of all, do y'all bass fish or sawguy fish and stuff? Well, I'm going to talk today primarily about bass fishing and early sawguy fishing. First of all, if you want to catch bass, if you know some local ponds and stuff, generally they're the first ones to lose the ice first. So when the pond first opens up, you know, I'll see guys out there with large plastic baits, and that's fine, but they're not likely to catch fish. The first couple of days the ice comes off, you can go and you can take a blade bait like this. These are called Vibramaxes and stuff. We make them, and I think preferably there's 3 holes. You attach it to the front hole, tie your line to it and stuff. Now you got a little blade bait, a metal blade bait with 2 treble hooks that's going to catch everything out there, including every stump and every log you throw it to. So, but this is extremely effective because, like I said, in cold water conditions, most of these bass have not moved up yet. They haven't moved up in the shallows, so you got to go out in deeper water to locate these fish. And the best way, one of the better ways to do it, is with a blade bait like this, because it's going to rapidly sink to the bottom. Let the bait sink to the bottom. Once it hits the bottom, you want to watch your line. You'll see a line, you'll see a line go slack after it hits the bottom. Now you know the bait's on the bottom. You reel down to the bait. You'll take your rod tip like this, cast it out. You reel down towards the bottom. Boom, you'll feel your blade hit the bottom. Now what you want to do is you want to bump the bait up off the bottom.
On that stool that we're going to give away, I'm going to let my spokesmodel grab those.
Yeah.
Yep.
Doesn't even have a name.
I do too. Today's her birthday. Today's my wife's birthday.
Really?
First thing that we have here
It's awesome.
is a,
Maybe you win
yeah,
the
we're going to do the small ones first. All right, Venom Predator Shads. All right, I got 2 packs of these. Give away a pack of them right now.
Caleb Watkins.
Caleb Watkins.
All right, Caleb.
there.
All right.
There you go.
3 of them each.
Our big winner. Yay!
Why not?
Yeah.
He came, didn't he?
All right.
Way to go, Caleb. Good job, buddy. Good job.
Of the Predator Shads. Venom Predator Shads. There you go.
I'm kind of going to cover 2 things today. I thought, first of all, I would try to share some knowledge that we have as fisheries biologists that you guys might not know. And it's a question that we get a lot. It's about how old fish live. how long do they live, how fast do they grow, how old are the fish I'm catching. It's something that's pretty interesting and something that you might like to know when you're out there catching fish. So that's part of what I'm going to talk about. And then, of course, I'm going to, second half's going to be more, I'm going to cover some of the highlights of our sampling season last year. So just some of the lakes that we had our equipment at last year, where we saw some good numbers of fish, some things to keep in mind for maybe the next year or two. There's an excise tax that the manufacturer of that equipment pays. That excise tax is collected by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in a big lump sum, and then they deal it back. So, you're helping the Division of Wildlife not just by buying your license, but also by anytime you purchase fishing or hunting equipment, there's a small percentage of that money that comes back to us, to the water. That money is used specifically for that. And then we have, specific ways that we can that we get money to use for diversity purposes.
We could raise them.
And so the other thing to make note of is that we don't get any general revenue funds. So when you pay state taxes, that money doesn't go to us. We're not in the state budget. It's a user pay system. So you guys are the ones utilizing the resource, and you guys are the ones paying for it. So I think it's a real nice system, and I think everyone should be aware of, before you buy your license, it's good to know where that money goes. All right, moving on to some important stuff. Some of these slides are going to be kind of small, so I apologize. I'll just try to talk through them. This I just wanted to highlight, just to give you a background of kind of how we sample lakes. We have an annual timeline set up in a system called our IMS Inland Management System. And basically what that does is it gives us a timeline of when and how we sample for specific, since 2003, across the state. How many of those were 1, how many of those were 2, and you can already see that we go out to 13. So that would be the oldest saugeye that we've aged in the state of Ohio. So out of about 12,000 samples, 6,000 of the fish that we aged were 1 year old. About half that many were 2 years old. About half that many were 3 years old. About half that many were 4 years old. Wow. Now we're starting to see a pattern here.
Yeah, you better start stalling.
7, 8, 9. Once you get to 10, so out of 12,000 fish, only 16 that we've aged were 10 years old. And those really old fish, we had a couple each that were 12 and 13. And so, to answer the question, how long does a saugeye live? Well, you could say that they have the capacity to live up to 13 years old, but
50%
realistically,
decrease each year.
half the fish in the lake are only 1, and the average saugeye probably lives a couple years. At least that would be my answer. So that could be some natural mortality. That could be fish leaving the reservoir through the dam. By the time we sample them in September, they've already grown over 8 inches. So that's really good growth for the first year. By the next fall, there's those 1-year-old fish that are right at 14 inches that everybody catches. By year 2, they're getting closer to 18. Year 3, closer to 20 inches. 4, about 21. You can see here how growth slows down every year. And that's a consistent pattern for all fish. So by the time you get to 7, they're averaging over 24, close to 25 inches. I didn't show the older fish between 7 and 13 because really after 7, the average length kind of goes down and back and forth because there's not many samples. And usually if a saugeye has lived that long, it's because it's in a slow growing lake. 14 inches, red's 14 to 18, green's 18 to 22, purple's 22 to 25, and the light blue is greater than 25 inches. And then this is the district average catch rate. This is the statewide average catch rate. So you see Allen's pretty consistent and a little below the averages. But the last 2011, 12, 13, it's kind of been trending up. And that continued in 2014. So we've had really consistent survival of our saugeye we've stocked. And I think that's kind of led to this, where we've got a nice stockpile of fish up to 22 inches. So that's kind of something encouraging, that the population's looking really good at Allen Creek. Should be even getting better, talking about the fishing. And just to throw Hoover in there, Hoover kind of had the same pattern, not quite as dramatic of an increase this year, but still, the last 4 years, our catch rate has gone up for Saugeye and Hoover. So that fish, and we catch more than just Saugeye in these nets, so something I wanted to bring up was channel catfish at Hoover. Those who catfish probably know Hoover's a great lake to do it from.
Blue cats.
Blue cats, we saw good numbers of blue cats in our nets too. But just looking at channel catfish, we did great this year. Total catch rate was the highest ever, and then this blue and that orange, that's 24 to 28 and over 28 inches. So we saw numerous fish that were at 30. This isn't the greatest picture, but these are two 10-plus pound channel cats that we found out there. And those, we don't age those fish, so they just get a length and they go back in. This fish, it doesn't look like it, but we weighed it. Actually weighed 14 pounds. It was 32 inches. And that's the biggest channel cat that I've seen come out of a gill net in the 8 years I've been working here. So Hoover, most people know, but just to back it up, it's a great catfishing lake. Another fish we get in these gill nets is white bass. And something that stuck out this past year was the white bass at Deer Creek. So there's a great adult white bass population right now. We saw a ton of them in our gill nets. And what I wanted to show you was just fish over 12 inches. If we just take the catch rate for fish over 12 inches, and we put the average catch rate for District 1 of fish over 12 inches, average for statewide, and then Deer Creek this past fall, it really blows those averages out of the water. And so for those of you that like to get out in the spring and fish the runs, the white bass runs in the spring, I would definitely consider Deer Creek. You go down there by Yankeetown Road. There's some other access areas down there. It should be a really good run this year, as long as the weather cooperates. There's a lot of big adult white bass out there. Moving to crappies, some highlights. One of the highlights this year was Indian Lake. And so here's the catch rate here compared to District 1 and statewide averages. You can see we always catch a ton of the young a year fish, these fish under 5 inches, but I mean, looking at the purple, that's over 9 inches. A good chunk of those fish out there as well. So this is white crappies. And just so you picture one of the nicer ones. This was actually caught during a bass survey in the spring. So we didn't keep this fish. We didn't crack his head open or anything. He's back there swimming in Indian Lake, but that was 15 inches on the dot. It was one of the biggest crappies I've ever pulled out of any of our lakes sampling. So there's a few of those out there. So Indian Lake's looking, the number of 18-inch fish in perspective.
Good question.
What I'm going to show you here is the catch rate of 18-inch and larger fish. So for all the lakes we have in central Ohio, I'm going to put a catch rate up so you can see Buckeye, Indian, Griggs, Allen Creek, O'Shaughnessy, Deer Creek, Hoover, Delaware, and Madison all come in about a half to 2 fish per hour that are 18 inches or bigger. Rush Creek, Kokosing, and Hargis kind of make up that next group. You get up to about 5 to 6 fish per hour. And then Kaiser and Knox really stick out. Always one of our better big fish lakes there. You're up to 12, and then Oakthorpe is a catch rate of 18. So for every hour that we electrofish at Oakthorpe, we catch 18 fish that are 18 inches or bigger. So a place maybe worth trying once or twice if you'd like to. It doesn't get a lot of attention, so I thought I'd mention